I think there was a study that just came out saying that some levels of, I don't think it was fallout necessarily, but I think it was living close to the nuclear facilities was giving people longer lifespans. I don't know, the quality of life was affected. I don't remember the specifics of it, but
they live longer though.
We barely have enough data to know how the shit's gonna affect us.
Sure.
If it's affecting metals that way.
They all have like really enhanced mathematical abilities. They're like human calculators.
Well, I mean,
they have photographic memories that allow them to render perfect photorealistic drawings with charcoal and their fingernails or something like that. That'd be a cool, like, mutant ability or radiation born ability for a superhero. Like, in addition to whatever strange powers they use to kick ass and take names, they also gained some really, like, finely tuned, highly creative, like, they can draw, or they can cook really well now because of it, or they can carve things out of wood, like perfect, like near perfect, renderings, things like that. Stuff that just like is like, oh, that's an extra dimension to this, special ability. Like Hawkeye. Hawkeye should be able to fucking whittle anything.
Yeah.
Because he's got great vision and he knows how to use knives and stuff.
Well, I just watched one of the movies recently, like yesterday, and one of the things he said is he sees better from a distance.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So so he.
I don't know if he just said that to be an asshole, because he was like trying to explain why he wasn't on the scene somewhere.
Oh yeah.
But I just happened to watch it.
Well, maybe in that case he would be carving something.
That's what I mean. That's the only reason I said that is because I just happened to watch it, and that line stood out to me for that not specifically about carving, but it made me think about whether he was being serious or whether he was being an asshole. But then if that was the case that he really did, then they were trying to make it more like an actual Hawk or his power.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it's like, huh. And okay, not to go off on a tangent, there's a lot of... the whole reason I've been watching the Avengers stuff is because there's a lot of shit that they put into the early movies that I think that they're bringing back around.
Sure. No, I've been on an Avengers myself.
That's funny.
I've been cycling through the whole MCU because I feel like okay, so by the time we get to Ragnarok, there are a bunch of really, like, the story doesn't make sense without it, and it's like, I know what all this stuff is, but I can't remember where I've seen it. Like, where has this stuff been mentioned before? Wait, I know where this was mentioned. Wait, was that Avengers? No, it was Captain America.
Right.
Like, so it goes all the way back to that.
Yeah, it goes all the way back.
And it's like, now I need to watch Captain America again, because I don't actually remember what happened in Captain America. And in fact, I don't remember anything in Winter Soldier.
Well, it's funny because the whole reason I started going back on a binge is I was on a long flight, and on that flight they had all 3 Captain America movies. Oh. So I went back and watched those, and I was like, oh shit, there's so much information about the superlative arc when the first time we saw these things we didn't notice them. So one of the things that really stood out to me was in Winter Soldier. This is something that I noticed a couple of weeks ago and talked about it to a couple of people, and then the theory came out on the internet around the same time, so I think somebody else had gone back and seen it too. There's this scene where Nick Fury gets an encrypted USB drive and he's trying to decrypt it, and you find out that he's the one that encrypted it, but he seems surprised that he's the one that encrypted it, as if it was him from a different timeline. So then in Age of Ultron, there's mention, he says this line about, now we're here back on Earth, and he hasn't actually left Earth ever, but the way he says it makes it seem like he's coming back from, like, or he's coming to this point to try to make things happen. Because what also happened, I think it was in this one, was Tony Stark was shown a vision of all the Avengers dead that makes him build Ultron in the first place. That was it was either by the
Scarlet Witch, because
she shows somebody else a vision of, what was it? She shows Thor a vision. That's what it was. She shows Thor a vision that he ends up having to go find what he saw, and then he saw the Infinity Stones, and this is where we actually find out the first time about the lore of the Infinity Stones,
like
together,
the full context of the whole thing.
Yeah, and why bringing them together
is a bad idea.
But also we start to learn things like that they have minds of their own.
Yeah.
So then we have to consider that the Infinity Stones are like organizing this in the larger scheme, because they have one of the things that we didn't realize until Infinity War was that Red Skull wasn't actually killed, and he was actually transported to Vormir by one of the stones.
Yeah.
So then he's doing the stone's bidding until Thanos gets there, which the stone clearly was anticipating.
So, like, in that sense, it's more or less the stones are the physical manifestation of some kind of fifth or sixth dimensional being.
Yes.
And that's the only way that we can interact with them, is they are stones.
That's what it seems to be going for. And then, what was it? There was another variation. Oh, so in the S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show, they definitely do time travel. So, obviously, so there's a bunch of weird shit. Like, we've seen Loki die
several times
in ways that were supposed to look convincing, and then the things that we've seen, like, the whole reason I'm bringing up Loki is because there's points where they bring in Thanos as, like, having been in contact with Loki early on. But then what we don't realize is when they're interchanging Loki and Odin, I think they're trying to tell us that Odin's a very bad leader, and it's impossible to tell. It's near impossible to tell the difference between Odin and Loki, because Odin's actually a bad guy, and we see this through Hela. And what, like,
Odin's only good through the lens of Thor. Like,
basically, and even through the lens of Thor, we don't like him in the stories.
Yeah, because he's
douchebag to Thor, who we're supposed to like. But when the first time we see Thor, he's kind of a douchebag because he's like acting like an ass, and like he's all like slamming shit and breaking.
I'm gonna kick some.
Yeah, so Thor is a kind of an asshole when we're introduced to him. It's almost like the Samson story in that way. But to kind of bring it round, like, what I'm getting at is that they're making the stones conscious, so the stones only allow things to happen that they want. Like, the stone won't allow something to happen if it doesn't want it to happen, because they're aware enough to stop things. So then the stones and the story have been continuous. I mean, we always knew they were continuous, but when we thought Red Skull was destroyed, he was actually being put on a mission by one of the stones that then brings Thanos to, like,
to sacrifice.
So what I'm getting at is, I think what ends up happening is, in order, like, what we may be getting to is, in order to actually beat Thanos, the stones, there's one universe which all the other universes had to sacrifice themselves to lose in order to get to that one. And this is where we're probably going to get the Marvel Universe getting reset, and the storyline actually works to bring in all the variations, even all of the shit in Sony and Fox that had nothing to do with any of this stuff, because I bet they might even make a joke about it and then show that like in these, the Avengers don't exist and we have what's called X-Men, because now they'll have the rights to even say some shit like that. And it was like, you know, what were like Inhumans in this universe were mutants, and they'll like, they might make a joke about it because now they can. So this is like my theory of how they're going to tie it all together and reset everything, because what's happening is they're fucking taking all the Netflix shows off of Netflix, and they're going to reset them on the Disney.
That's brilliant.
Fucking Marvel shit. But they've been making it like, they've been building it up in a way that just happened to perfectly coincide with the rights. And I think they might have had this planned in a way where I don't put this past Disney. This is going to sound real crazy until somebody finds some proof.
Yeah.
Check this out. If Disney had thought about this, and they have people that are way smarter than me, they would have had people writing terrible reviews about the Fox and Sony movies this entire time to put that fucking shit, like, make their IP worth very little to the point where they had to sell and make a deal. Like, if you look at the X-Men movies and the way they were really bad at first, and they got better because the technology got better.
Yep.
It wasn't that the movies were necessarily terrible, except fucking Days of Future Past. I don't know what the fuck they did with Apocalypse on that. That was like, that was just terrible. But what ends up happening is the timing of when the acquisition of all of the rights it's not even fully done.
Yeah.
But all of the, like,
because we have the Dark Phoenix movie coming out.
Yeah.
Or the Phoenix movie coming out.
And it was just like the way that it's happened, and people have been accusing Disney of not just Disney, not even just Disney. There have been accusations of paid like movie criticisms and like Rotten Tomatoes and and, you know, just the critics themselves. So that's what I'm saying. If the timing of it, like, obviously that's you would definitely need some proof for that shit to happen. But what I'm getting at is there's no way that if there was a legal way for them to do those things and have it be corporate espionage that was not illegal, that were knocking the Sony and Fox films in any way possible. I know they had fucking people doing that shit to get them to a point where they can make a better deal on these intellectual property rights, because the timing is just too perfect.
Yeah.
For me, from my taste, because part of it is you kind of have to draw it out to make it so it's like they have no real choice, because that's why Marvel had to sell their movie the movie rights the way they did in the first place. Like, the movie studios, like, a lot of what gets blamed on comic book movies not getting made in the way they are now is actually not accurate, because if you go back and look, they were trying to make Spider-Man and Captain America and Punisher and fucking Hulk movies and TV shows, and like they just never caught on because they weren't getting executed exactly like the comic books.
Well, that's the thing. There was supposed to be a Secret Wars before the Infinity Gauntlet, and they can't do the Infinity Wars without the X-Men. Yep. And they can't do the Infinity Wars without the Fantastic Four. Yep. And they definitely can't do Infinity War or the Secret Wars without Spider-Man. So like all of the franchises are necessary for Secret Wars. Yep. And you can't really invest a lot of time in Hydra without the rest of them either, because Hydra's integral to a lot of the side stories involving Wolverine. Hydra's, because he was a secret agent on his own for the Canadians.
And you just reminded me
there's this entire world that doesn't exist without all of them being there together. And that's how we get the restart.
Hydra ties the main, the universe together.
The main storyline.
And what ends up happening is, I think it's Captain America, they allude to Hydra having the machine that can tell everything about the future. And I think they might have even been talking about Loki in the Captain America storyline. I don't think they... Oh, no, because Red Skull alludes to the Tesseract having been in Odin's vault.
Yeah.
And other things having been in Odin's, armory or something.
Odin, I'm pretty sure Odin had all of the stones at one point.
That's what one other theory that's been put forth. And because they had in one of the early movies, they had the gauntlet, and then to make it canon, in Ragnarok, Hela comes in and knocks it over and is like fake. So because they had included it in one of the early, what was it, Guardians of the Galaxy maybe?
Yeah.
They had to come back and was like, oh, this is fake, but obviously there had been a gauntlet forged.
Yeah,
before, so this
plans already existed.
Exactly. So this is where they might be. Because I also looked at the IMDb. The Great One comes back, or is somehow present. So it may be through either time travel, so they may go back in history, or go back in the past and contact the Great One, or the Great One may come back through the Time Stone.
Yeah.
She may have been incarnated into the Time Stone after she passed or something. Or who knows? But whatever it is, she's in the credits. On IMDb.
Well, that's awesome.
So, and then one of the things that they leaked is Spider-Man's back.
Yeah.
T'Challa's back in the credits. So it's hard to tell if they go back in the past and that's when they redo it, or if it happens and they're brought back post snap. But these people are present and then they also messed up because they released the they kind of messed up because they released the Spider-Man.
Oh, the Spider-Verse movie?
No. There's one in 2019, Far Away From Home.
Oh.
They released the title before the Avengers 4 comes out, so it's clear he's not dead for that one.
Oh, maybe he rematerializes on whatever that planet was called. It doesn't matter what the planet was called.
And that's another one, is that everybody who dies goes to another universe. That's another possibility where there's all these things that they could do with it, but having Ant-Man having been in the quantum realm. What was it? Because time doesn't exist in a linear way in the quantum realm, I think that's how they're gonna use Ant-Man go back in time or some shit. Or the that is what it seems what they're alluding to is that somebody has already gone back in the past, and what we're seeing is, I think, one of the failed universes where we thought this, or it might be the one where they win, but we're starting to see the other, all the other we're going to start to see all the other universes where people die. And that's why we see two different Captain Marvel uniforms. One's green and one preview, and one's red.
Well,
but one's might be from the 90s or something.
One is, I always thought that Sword's colors were green.
Well,
Sword is the space guardian.
It's also pre Nick Fury losing his eye.
Oh, that's
based
true.
on, or it's an alternate universe. That's what we can't tell yet.
Yeah.
Is that he's got hair and he has not lost his eye yet, or
he's
ever,
or he's the white Nick Fury.
Yeah, right.
And it's what's his name? The guy that played Cable and Thanos. He plays Nick Fury also. That'd be great.
Josh Brolin.
Josh Brolin if he also played White Nick Fury.
Yeah. He could, what's that dude that plays Negan? Whatever that dude's name is.
That guy would be a really good.
He could be a really good White Nick Fury.
Oh, he would. Yeah. They just give him this white stripes through the sides of his hair.
And he played the comedian in Watchmen. He'd be a really good fucking Nick Fury.
He would. He'd be a great Nick because he's big.
Yeah.
Like he looks like he can actually like dish out a beating.
And I think that's what I don't really necessarily feel that from Samuel L. Jackson, but just because he's a badass motherfucker, he can pull it off. And that's where I feel like if they were gonna reboot it, I feel like they should go back to, I mean, not just because like it's the old original, but I think it would be a good time to bring in that dude to be like, you could have them both, and that's what would be interesting.
That's how we get a different Tony Stark. That's how.
And then you could do House of M. You could do all this different shit.
We can get a different Logan.
Exactly, and still have fucking Hugh Jackman as Logan.
Hugh Jackman says he doesn't want to do it anymore.
Well, he will once he figures out that they can do like they can bring in like redo Days of That Future Past bullshit.
Yeah. And
then do like the pre-Logan, like all that pre-Logan stuff can be brought in and make it canon. Or they can bring him in another X-23 and do like an actual good X-23 because she wasn't bad in that one.
No, actually, Logan was, I think, really a good direction. I'm glad they did the Old Man Logan story. I actually felt like they did a good job. Mm-hmm. It was hard watching Picard like that, or the Professor like that.
Yeah. Well, I think they could do a good Bishop line.
Oh God.
Just do a whole like mutant. I forget what they called, but that whole team were like Forge and Bishop.
There's X Factor and X Force, and there was another one. There was Excalibur. Was it X Factor?
They might have been X Factor.
I think it was X Factor
because I know Cable was like
and X Force.
Yeah, and then he was like,
oh man, I think it was in X Force, the Polaris character.
They might have joined X Force actually at some point because I know because Cable was from the future. I'm trying to think if there was like a team that was multiple future people and it was more than. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look it up again.
There's a lot of discontinuity within all of it because there's the whole like Days of Future Past timeline, and then there's the corrected. After they fix it, they go back in time and fix everything so that doesn't happen. Then there's the corrected timeline where a bunch of things just didn't happen. The X-Men weren't killed.
Yeah.
So it's. I've always thought that X-Men was a really fascinating universe because time travel was this thing that is accepted, and not just accepted, but it's an integral mechanism for storytelling because they're not afraid to change the past because if they don't change the past, everyone's gonna die, and it's like that. It's like that critical, and it seemed like they were able to resolve the time travel continuum somehow because the powers they were based in some kind of mutant level of time control manipulation. It was a much more intuitive but profoundly more powerful version of quantum manipulation than what physics could allow for. And comics are great because they can do that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
But
I mean, it becomes as if Scarlet Witch represents the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. Where, I mean, because they do the same thing in DC, but that's how you're easily able to have a whole universe reset at the whim of one person. And where it's like, obviously, that's not fucking possible.
How do we know that
that's what the uncertainty principle represents?
This entire Infinity War movie could have been a dream that Legion had,
or
because he's crazy,
or a Thanos death.
Yeah.
Like, this might be, like, his vision, like, everything after he sacrificed Gamora could have been a fucking death dream, and we don't even realize it. Like, I mean, there's all these different ways it could go about it, but obviously because it's like,
or they, you know, Deus Ex Machina us, and they pull out Proteus out of nowhere, and he just like completely alters reality.
Yeah.
Or any number of the super unbelievably powerful characters in Marvel Universe could just randomly appear. And you know, say, no, this isn't happening, guys, sorry, because it's not impossible in that place. So
I mean, just because that's where, what was it seemed like that's what happened with the stone with Red Skull. It basically was the stone stopping everything.
Yeah.
And it seemed like it was the Avengers or whoever, or Captain America winning, but it was actually the stone. Yeah. It was just timing. And that's where, from the perspective of the audience at the time, it was perfect timing to make it seem like Captain America did it. But when you go back after having seen everything, it was more than likely the stone that actually did that.
Yeah.
Because we know now Red Skull is not only part of the stone's plans, but once he puts it in motion, or like gets the second part done, then he's free. And he's done his duty.
But he's been bound there for 50 plus years.
Right.
As a floating head.
Yep.
What a way to go. You're a floating head for 50 years.
Yeah, and that's kind of where
alone
going back and
years.
watching it, like it's a pretty dark storyline.
Yeah.
Even down to when they show the visions of the future, they're very dark visions.
Everyone's dead.
Yeah, and that's kind of where, you know, just because they don't show blood, I think it's very easy to get lost in the Disney colors. But it's a very, very dark storyline.
And when who was it? It's I guess Scarlet Witch like used her telekinesis to throw that one of Thanos' guards up into the machine.
Yeah.
And
but it was blue.
Exactly.
And that's where
they get away with.
Exactly. You don't. It doesn't register because it's blue blood and not red.
And we know it's Thanos' bad henchman, so we don't feel bad about it.
Oh, and even in Captain America, I think that it was either that one or Winter Soldier 1. It was one of those movies. He's like flying one of, it must have been the first one, because he's flying one of those bombs, and he turns it up, and he's fighting somebody, and they fall into the fucking propeller blade, and it splatters. You don't see it. You might even see it actually, and it definitely splatters blood onto the plane,
but not onto the captain.
Yeah, I don't think onto the captain. So this is where you're like, this is a Disney movie? Fucking people are getting like chopped up in propeller blades, like pretty consistently. There's a lot of broken necks and fucking people that get capped and don't get back up. I think they said at one point Loki killed at least 85 people himself, because in the New York attack, because there was like something where he just killed a bunch of people, like, and they specifically said 85 at one point. So that's just one character has killed 85 in the past. 85 good people, because then they don't even count all the bad people he's killed fighting alongside Thor, because they kill a lot of people too. Or they're not necessarily people, so they're aliens, and that's how they get away with it. Yeah, ice giants don't count.
They don't matter. Nobody likes the ice giants except other ice giants.
Which is why we hate Loki.
That's right.
Until he empathizes and sides with us.
Until he reveals that he's kind of useful. Yeah. He's actually really useful.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's incredibly useful, actually, now that I think about it.
Yeah.
Loki has a mechanism to get things done, like questionable things. Compromise your ethics. Have Loki do it.
This is one of the other reasons they signed on the new Disney whatever service. There's going to be a TV show that centers around Loki, so he can't be completely, unless they're doing prequel
Well, that's no fun because we know
it wouldn't be any fun.
We know he can't die until later. Well, no, he can die a whole bunch of times. They'll just resurrect his ass. Like,
and that's where prequel stuff wouldn't make any sense. Really.
Yeah, like this just explains these years when he wasn't in these movies.
Yeah, because I think it's supposed to be about him and I believe Scarlet Witch, if I'm not mistaken. But that would also make sense as to why there might be a potential House of M spinoff, where it's like Scarlet Witch reset everything and Loki is like if Loki at some point had controlled Scarlet Witch's mind and have her reset an entire universe, and maybe that was the one we were in to see like a potential Thanos fight or something, and then we reset it. There's all these different ways they could bring in the House of M, because they had been setting up Scarlet Witch as being super powerful.
Yeah.
But
she also has potential to be super powerful in X-Men universe too.
Well, but we also weren't allowed to see their father as Magneto yet, but they didn't necessarily rule it out, I don't think, by the way they wrote the storyline, because they're twins.
And what I really want to see, even though they killed Quicksilver in Marvel, but X-Men universe's Quicksilver is still alive.
Yeah.
So different universes still, they can still collide. I really want to see him take on the mantle of Magnus and raise Asteroid M and have his own little space station. I think that would be a really good story arc.
Yeah.
I know that's really an X-Men story, but I still would like to see that.
There's not been a lot of chatter about X-Men lately, so that's where
they've been focusing on the really easy stuff.
Yeah.
Everyone likes the Phoenix Saga, but that's easy.
That's super easy.
They didn't get into any of the Genosha stuff. They didn't get into any of the really ethically challenged stuff at all. They've just been doing the really cut and dry, basic mutant stories. And there's enough of the X-Men universe that is complex, that is challenging, that makes you question whether or not the bad guy is actually the bad guy.
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind that Magneto is not a bad guy. He's just tired of putting up with crap.
Basically.
And
that's what was really
Logan
good.
Kills people.
Yeah.
Seemingly indiscriminately. He kills people because he has anger management issues. But he's considered a good guy. But he flat out cuts people's arms off.
Yeah.
So, it's
well, but
it's
that's
a very
where,
gray it's a gray universe, and that's why I've always liked it.
First Class was really good about showing that.
Yeah.
With the the internment camp and
him having to survive.
Yeah.
Just to survive.
And what was it? The Wolverine movie was good with showing
Wolverine or the one in Japan?
No, the one before that.
Oh, the Origin.
Yeah, where it was in the fucking 1800s or 1700s or 1800s or whatever.
His little kid had and they were bone claws.
Yeah.
I liked that one too, actually.
Yeah.
I didn't like how they made Deadpool suck. They made the Deadpool not be able to talk. How can Deadpool not talk?
Yeah. But that's funny that he ended up playing Deadpool.
He ended up pushing for a real Deadpool series, and now he's on this nonstop shit talking thing.
Did you see where he goes and kills that one?
What?
I forgot all about that. Maybe Deadpool is how they do it too, because he time travels.
Oh yeah.
Kills that Deadpool in an end credit or something. It's like a Easter egg.
In Deadpool 2?
I think so.
Oh, I need to.
Yeah, because they rebuild the time machine. I need to rewatch that again too, because I watched it on a plane. So it might have been edited too, but they definitely have a spot where he goes and fucking chops off his head or something. So it's
that's dope.
Yeah.
I enjoyed Deadpool 2. I thought Cable was they did Cable really well. I actually, I thought
yeah.
I thought that like the way that the casting for Cable, of course, is really well done because Josh Brolin's got like that jaw, but it all like worked out. For whatever it took, they did it right, because Cable wasn't just like a brute. He could talk shit back, and it was funny. It wasn't it wasn't mechanical, and I was afraid that they were going to try and basically deliver us the Terminator, and because Cable is kind of the Terminator, but he was good, and they had like really good chemistry.
Well, and they still broke the fourth wall in a great way when they like made fun of. He said something like okay Thanos, like to Cable, so it's like still making jokes at the breaking the fourth wall really well, because I was worried about that, how they were gonna break the fourth wall with the Deadpool character, because it can go really well, it can go really bad, and I think they always end up doing it pretty well, but I think that's Ryan Reynolds more than anybody knowing how to break the fourth wall, because he does shit like
that's his thing.
Not in the Deadpool character. He's always really good at breaking the fourth wall, and I think they just happened to find somebody in the course of writing the character.
He's uniquely skilled at performing Deadpool, because he's not only invested psychologically. I mean, he stole the suit from the first movie.
I mean,
and then like posted pictures like, hey guys, look what I got. Like,
yeah, I mean, even down to like, I think they wrote the comic book character now that his origin is like the same birthday as Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, that's funny.
He looks like Ryan Reynolds.
That's even better.
Like his because of the way they play with the fourth wall, now Deadpool is Ryan Reynolds in the comic books, as far as I know.
That's the same thing that happened with Samuel Jackson and Nick Fury. They
started
redrawing Nick Fury as Samuel, or to look more like Samuel Jackson.
But this goes beyond that in the sense of, like,
they really started assuming aspects of Ryan Reynolds,
like down to his birth date. Yeah,
see, that's incredible.
Which is where it's like they really have ran with the joke, and I think if they didn't have somebody who was willing to go this far with them the joke, it wouldn't fucking work. It wouldn't work.
I really hope that Hugh Jackman comes around and does a Wolverine Deadpool movie.
Oh, this shit has to happen.
I mean, it'd be so good.
Shit has to happen. I mean,
so good.
Oh man, and this is where I feel like he may have actually quit the franchise at some point, but I feel like he knows the plans, and that's why he's still putting out fucking photo ops with Ryan Reynolds and shit.
Well, that, and they're also friends.
Oh, of course.
Real life.
But
it's part of the shtick that they
exactly. They're otherwise
they're doing some kind of like really high level Laurel and Hardy type thing.
Exactly. It wouldn't work if they didn't keep it going.
Yeah.
And I don't think he would have any interest in keeping it going if he didn't have in the back of his head that he wants to do, like, nobody wants to admit they're fucking old to themselves. And he'll get to a point where he's like, I just want to do one more, like, and if it's the right script, that's what he'll say.
Yep.
And it'll be the right script, because Ryan Reynolds won't do it if it's not the right, and there's all these other people who won't do it if it's not the right script.
Because they've been looking towards this project for X amount of years. They've been planning it, and they have been manicuring and massaging and grooming this script to be the ideal send-off for Wolverine via Deadpool.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll be great.
And I mean,
Wolverine and Deadpool.
Well, I guess part of it though is like, knowing what they can do with CGI, characters don't have to be sent off anymore, where you can have Arnold in a film.
Oh, like Terminator Salvation.
Exactly.
Oh man.
And then or
the Genesis.
Or Robert Downey in I think it was it Winter Soldier? No, Civil War. They made him look like his young self. Fucking
that's right, during the simulator
Kirk
thing.
Douglas in Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
No, that was
or
Michael
Douglas.
Was it?
No, it's Kirk Douglas.
No, Michael Douglas. It was Kurt Russell.
Oh, Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell in Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah, and they made him look young. But they also made Michael Douglas look young.
Yeah, Michael Douglas.
In Ant-Man.
Yeah, they did.
Because they did the flashback in Ant-Man where he punched the guy, rammed the dude's head onto the metal desk.
Yeah, that's right.
It was like
and I think did they do that to Lawrence Fishburne too? I forget if they showed him young. I know they alluded to it. I don't know if they actually showed it or not. Yeah, I don't remember.